Shalom Aleichem Na'aleh viewers. Welcome to another shiur in Maseches Brachot. Today's shiur is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmas Rachel Leah Bas Reb Chaim Tzvi. We're continuing in Maseches Brachot. In the second parak, we're holding on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis. We're going to start from the sugya that's 3 lines before the lines become very wide on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Tana Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Brisa, Shma Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Zu Krias Shma Shel Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. The pasuk Shma Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the first pasuk of Krias Shma, that was the Krias Shma that was recited by Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, and that comprised the entire Krias Shma of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Says the Gemara, Amalei Rav LeReb Chia. Rav said to Reb Chia, Lo chazina le'Rebbe the mekabel alei malchus shamayim. Rav said to Reb Chia, I didn't notice that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi fulfilled the requirement of kabbalah al malchus shamayim. Says Rashi, Lo chazina the mekabel alei malchus shamayim. Shahaya Shoina leTalmida of Mikodim Zman Krias Shma. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi would arise early and give a early shiur, early in the morning, before Zman Krias Shma, before the time to recite the morning Shma. Ukshehigia Azman, and when the time to recite Shma arrived, Lo Reisiv Mafsik, I didn't see that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, Rabbi, would interrupt his shiur to perform the mitzvah of Kabbalah Al Malchus Shamayim, of reciting Krias Shma. So the Gemara says, Amalei, Rav Chia said to Rav, Bar Pichsi, you're the son of Gedolim, you're the son of great Talmidei Chachamim. What kind of a question are you asking that you didn't notice Rebbe reciting Krias Shma and performing the mitzvah of Kabbalah Al Malchus Shamayim, but rather he continued, it seemed to you, he continued saying his shiur? Bar Pichsi, B'shah Shemaver Yadav Al Panav, at the time that Rebbe would place his hand over his eyes, Mikabel Olav Al Malchus Shamayim, he accepted upon himself Kabbalah Al Malchus Shamayim. So in fact, the Gemara says, Rabbi Chia says to Rav that in fact Rebbe would recite, he would interrupt his shiur, he would interrupt his learning of teaching Talmidim to recite the first pasuk of Krias Shma, the pasuk which contains Kabbalah Al Malchus Shamayim, and in fact he did interrupt his shiur to Mekabel Al Malchus Shamayim. That's what he was doing when he would place his hand over his eyes. He was being Mekabel Kabbalah Al Malchus Shamayim. Says the Gemara, so now the Gemara raises the following question: Chayzer v'goimra, oy einay chayzer v'goimra. Did Rebbe go back to recite the rest of Krias Shma, the remainder of Krias Shma, after the Talmidim left, after the conclusion of the shiur? Did Rebbe go back to recite the parts of Shma that he had skipped? Or did he not go back to recite the parts of Krias Shma that he had skipped? So the Gemara says, Bar Kapara Omer, Einay Chayzer v'goimra. Bar Kapara says that Rebbe would interrupt the shiur to recite the first pasuk of Krias Shma, Shma Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, to fulfill the requirement of Kabbalah Al Malchus Shamayim. Then he would return to continuing teaching Torah, to continue with the shiur. And when the Talmidim left, Rebbe would not return to recite the remainder of Shma. He only recited that first pasuk, Shma Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Reb Shimon Rebbe Omer, Shimon Rebbe argues, and he says Chayzer v'goimra, that really Rebbe did go back after the students had left, after the Talmidim left the shiur. Rebbe went back and he recited the parts of Krias Shma that he had skipped. Earlier, when it was Zman Krias Shma, he went back, even though it was no longer Zman Krias Shma, he would go back and recite those paragraphs of Shema that he hadn't mentioned. V'ahavta v'hoyim shmoyan v'yoymer. Says the Gemara, Amalei bar kapara li Reb Shimon bar Rebbe. Bar kapara said to Reb Shimon bar Rebbe, Bishlam l'didi da'amina ine chayz v'goymra. If you explain the way I explained, that Rebbe did not go back to recite the other paragraphs of Shema. Rebbe's Krias Shma comprised totally of this one pasuk, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, to fulfill the mitzvah of Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim. And Rebbe did not go back after the Talmidim had left to recite the other paragraphs of Krias Shma. Hainu d'mahad Rebbe Ashmaitzo de'isbo Yitzias Mitzrayim. So then we understand why Rebbe would every day go out of his way